right, back to prices for our main story. Bitcoin has soared more than 160% since the start of this year. Crypto World's Talia Kaplan sat down with Bitcoin Foundation Chairman Brock Pierce for his insight on what's driving prices right now.
This week, Bitcoin hit fresh highs for the year, surpassing $44,000. What do you think is the main driver behind the recent price action? Do you think it's the potential of those applications for spot Bitcoin ETFs getting approved? Do you think that's one of the main drivers?
Well, I think there's a few drivers. One, first, what took us to the lows. That was trust, having been broken by Terra Luna, BlockFi, Celsius, FTX. And, when trust erodes, things come down. And so we had to go through that sort of process of correction and then eventually faith restoring as people remember the underlying premise that this technology is real and it works, and that new and better stewards and custodians will rise to fill those places where others have fallen. And then, what are the drivers that, get the markets moving again? Clearly, the ETF is something that everyone's excited about the prospects of the public being able to access it, which is less so much that as it is institutions that, due to their charters, may not be able to buy crypto. Their charters require, custodial sort of services. It may have to be certain public markets, exchange, whatever. And so the ETF should open the market to real institutional buying, which I think is what people are excited about. And then, eventually markets can only stay down so long before even those that have been sitting on the sidelines holding dollars, eventually want to dive back in. I mean, one of my friends runs one of the biggest institutions. I'm like, why weren't you managing all my money? He sold everything at the top. And they bought everything back in at the bottom. It's like, wow, clearly I'm not the best trader. But some people, time markets very well.
So do you think this positive momentum will continue into 2024? Bernstein predicts that Bitcoin will hit $150,000 in 2025. Do you see that happening?
Well, I mean, if you look at the historical cycles, when we eventually get into one of these real bull runs, and this is looking like it, it looks like Christmas has come early. Well, actually, let's say beginning of Hanukkah. We'll credit this one to Hanukkah. The crypto community is going to be very happy, and the kids will hopefully all be receiving better gifts, more joy. And so I think that this is looking like a very real bull run. This doesn't feel like, I think that this is the next one. And every time we find ourselves in one of those bull runs, we do find all-time highs. And if it usually happens, it blows the roof off. And so, is $150,000, where we're going to end up? I have no idea. But is it possible? Certainly. And it's also possible that, we find ourselves falling again if we find another one of these terrible events. If another, call it bad actor, has done something that causes a major loss for the industry. These are the things that ultimately chill the markets and stop whatever momentum. But we've got momentum on our sides right now. Wind is at the market's back, and hopefully it takes us all the way through the holidays into next year with an all-time high, and God willing, $150,000 Bitcoin.
Do you think the SEC will actually approve those applications for spot Bitcoin ETFs? I mean, after all, we all know that SEC Chair Gary Gensler is not exactly a fan of crypto, but he did recently say that he's going to listen to his staff as it pertains to a potential spot Bitcoin ETF. And memos published last week revealed that the SEC met with asset managers BlackRock and Grayscale ahead of that much anticipated decision. And industry experts believe that we could see the launch of a spot Bitcoin ETF early next year. Do you see that happening?
Well, I certainly hope so. And I think it's long overdue. I mean, the idea that this has been attempted for a decade now.
Right.
If an ETF had been made available to the American people when Bitcoin was at $100 or $200, how much wealth would have been created for the American people? The regulators in this instance prevented the American people from being the beneficiaries of this incredible period of wealth creation, and it ended up mostly in the hands of the internationals. And so this bothers me. Regulation, I support sensible regulation, protect, the people from bad actors and things. But I don't think what's happened here is ultimately in the best interest of America. What made America great were the capital of innovation, the American dream, entrepreneurialism, and the idea that innovation is being stifled in the US because of regulators trying to regulate by enforcement, I think is a problem. And so I hope our regulators start enforcing the law rather than trying to create law.
I want to turn to another major headline in crypto recently, that settlement between Binance and US government officials. Of course, we saw Binance's CEO step down from his role and plead guilty to charges of money laundering violations. So, what was your reaction to that? And what do you think that signals to the crypto industry?
Again, I think different than what we see with the FTX is, I think it's one where if you're going to be a steward or a custodian of a major financial institution, even one that is part of the new economy, that you have to understand the responsibility of being in that role, right? And self-regulation. You have to understand that it is your responsibility to be responsible for our future when you're in a position of that kind of power. And for anyone that is in one of those positions, understand that. Be your best, self-regulate to the best of your ability. Clearly, you do not want things like terrorists having access to your platform. There will be consequences if you don't do that work. You can't ignore it. And fortunately, I'm quite proud of the industry's response in general. I think people are using know your customer to make sure that the Hamas types are not utilizing your platforms. And so I think that's the message. I mean, CZ had done an incredible job of building a huge business. He's going to be just fine. I think he can afford a $4 billion fine. And, and also I think it creates an opportunity for all the other entrepreneurs and all the other people running exchanges where there'll be less concentration in one large platform. So I think the message is clear. Understand that it's an important responsibility being at the helm of a major exchange.
Expanding on that, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said that Binance failed to report suspicious transactions, including terrorism. She said that more than 100,000 transactions were detected involving terrorist groups, including Al Qaeda and ISIS and other bad actors. And in October, the Wall Street Journal reported that Hamas militants raised millions of dollars through crypto ahead of the October 7th attack in Israel. So, why are terrorist groups turning to crypto, and what could be done to potentially try to stop it?
I mean, I think it's an important discussion right now, but millions out of billions, is an inconsequential number. So I think it still needs to be put into perspective. But every dollar matters, right? On a relative basis, every dollar, matters. And back to the responsibility, I know CZ well. I don't think that it was his intention to allow those sorts of things to happen or to support it in any way. This is where being an upstart is difficult. Just managing a fast growing business is very hard. A business that's expanding rapidly and things fall through the cracks, accidents happen. Perhaps you weren't, doing certain things as well as you could. That's part of being young, whether it be us individually or organizations, it's similar. But that is, again, the responsibility. When you have that kind of business, it's important that you're doing everything you possibly can.
Pierce also discussed regulatory advancements here in the US and what he would like to see from lawmakers in 2024. You'll be able to catch the full interview over at cnbc.com/cryptoworld. That's all for today. We'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.